Hello. If you are here and you are not related to me, thank you. Thank you so much for stopping by my little corner of the internet. My name is Patty, and I will be your host and curator here at the Museum of Music. As the name implies, this is a channel where I'll be doing deep dives into music that I believe is artful, thoughtful, and insightful. If you like music and you occasionally like to nerd out about a topic, then please subscribe and join me again when I post videos in the future. If you're new here, then you are just like everyone else, including me, because this is my first video. I'm really excited to officially start this channel by looking at an artist who, for me, has been truly inspiring, not just as a creative, but also as a person. You probably already know who Hwasa is if you click this video, but for those who don't, she is a South Korean pop star who started off in a girl group called Mamamoo, which is still active today, but she also does solo work, and today we'll be looking at one of her solo releases, a song entitled "I'ma Be." As the title of my video implies, I will be sharing my analysis, my interpretations, my opinions throughout this video. You may agree or disagree with some of the things that I say, but I would like to hear your thoughts in the comment section either way. With that said, this video is already long enough, so I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get started. So if you don't work from home like I do, or you're not a serious nerd, you probably haven't had the time to watch every interview and all the behind-the-scenes footage related to Hwasa's song, "I'ma Be." My real goal in this explanalysis is to highlight what Hwasa herself has said about the true meaning and message behind the song, as well as use my expertise in film and literature to analyze the music video where she and director Jin use visual language to send an even more impactful and complex message.
Why does this creeps me out? That gives off sect.
There has been some confusion and misunderstanding about the real message behind Hwasa's "I'ma Be." Yet some reactors have definitely pointed out that there seems to be a deeper or more complex message behind the song and the music video.
Her style of storytelling, both through her lyrics and her music video, don't follow like traditional linear storytelling. So it's honestly quite difficult to just decipher it really on one watching.
The title alone seems to have some people convinced that it's a song about confidence and female empowerment. And people are confused about the message of the song for a pretty good reason. The lyrics seem contradictory at times. The music video doesn't always seem to match the message in the lyrics. And the music video has some pretty mysterious scenes that, without proper context, can be pretty confusing.
Parts of the lyrics, they seem a little contradictory. We definitely have to watch it again to even just decipher the lyrics.
This whole thing, I feel like, holds so much meaning and deeper, like, signification.
In 2022, it's not uncommon for women to take the B word and turn it into a compliment or even a statement of confidence. So it's not surprising that most people seem to assume that that was the message behind Hwasa's song. But if that was the case, then why would she describe the song as an apology to her friends and family? A middle finger bearing apology to her friends and family. The song and music video are full of contradictions. At one point, Hwasa describes her life as, quote, incredible. And in the same breath, she describes it as, quote, so terrible. She claims to believe her sins are beautiful, but then says that tears lie behind her confident smile. Well, here's the thing. These contradictions are intentional, and they serve an important artistic purpose.
그냥 지금 내 마음을 다시 한번 이렇게 돌아봐야겠다 했을 때 나온 게 이제 암호빗인데 제가 이제 계속 곡을 만들고 계속 들으면서 생각을 해보니까 마리아랑 지금이랑 되게 이렇게 뭔가 얘기가 이어지길래 뮤비랑 아예 이었죠. 선과 악에 막 고민하면서 죽음을 택할까? 그냥 지금 살아있음을 택할까? 이런 얘기인데 마리아 뮤비에선 마리아가 욕조에서 죽어있는 상태로 시작을 해요. 그게 이제 악을 선택했을 때의 모습인데 마지막에 엔딩을 보면은 마마무 멤버들이 집에 찾아오면서 끝나요. 그러니까 한마디로 해피엔딩으로 끝나요. 이번에는 그 마리아가 악을 택했을 때 얘기인 거죠. 이제 그 마리아가 죽어서 욕조에서 죽은 물과 함께 쏟아지거든요. 다른 세계관으로 온 거죠. 만약의 세계관인 거죠. 디테일이 있어요. 여러분들이 유추해 보세요.
That's all I needed.
Since Hwasa personally asked me to discover all of the connections between the Maria music video and I'm a Bee, I set out to do just that. And I'm glad I did. There are plenty of connections between Maria and I'm a Bee. But what I discovered by examining the song more closely is a deeply insightful exploration of what it means to be an artist and what it means to be a person with a public persona. Through the song, rather than making a confident declaration about what kind of woman she is, Hwasa is struggling to find the balance between her real self, her inner self, and her public persona. She's struggling to find the balance between the needs of her inner self and the demands of her persona. In this clip, Hwasa meets with her creative team to give insight into the satirical style that she used in writing the song.
같이 할 것 같아요. 그러니까 이게 조금 위트 있게 풀려고 했거든요. 예를 들어서 내가 진지하게 내가 좀 못돼서 미안해 이게 아니라 내가 못돼서 미안해 찡긋 막 이런 뭔가의 위트함. 그래서 조금 뮤비 자체도 되게 마리아 때는 좀 무겁고 되게 진지하고 막 이랬잖아요. 뭔가 한이 맺혀 있는 걸 그냥 포효하는 느낌이고 이랬다면, 그리고 뭔가 정신병원 같은 게 1차원적으로 나왔다면 이번에는 그 비치의 정신 세계로 들어가는 거여서
Viewing Hwasa's I'm a Bee casually could cause you to question the sincerity of her apology to friends and family. But one who's more familiar with common storytelling devices will more easily recognize I'm a Bee as a type of ironic satire. This is a style choice that storytellers often use when they want to make a nuanced and complex point, not say something that's so straightforward or black and white. Sometimes it's useful to be straightforward with your message, just as Hwasa was with the music video for Maria. But there are times when irony is actually the best course of action. Have you ever been sharing with someone about a serious situation or painful experience you went through and found yourself using humor or making an inappropriate joke about it? Of course, you know that you should not joke about the topic, but somehow doing so makes it easier for you to share. That's a form of irony. You subverted expectations by making light of a heavy topic.
That psycho, he's gonna get us all killed.
That doesn't mean that you don't take the topic seriously or that you aren't actually feeling sad. It's just the style of communication. Hwasa chose to do the same sort of thing in the writing of I'm a Bee.
막 미쳐버리니까 뭔가 이제 주변 사람들한테도 좀 더 따뜻한 말을 더 많이 할 수 있고 하고 한데 나는 내 일에 미쳐서 막 노래 뭐 해야 돼, 뭐 만들고 싶어 막 이런 식으로 맨날 이러고 사니까 그냥 좀 그런 저를 좀 비치라고 설명을 그냥 했던 것 같아요. 그러니까 뭔가 저를 좀 내리깎는 식으로 뭔가 좀 미안해, 내가 비치라서 미안해, 이해해줘. 그냥 이런 식으로 좀 귀엽게 그냥
내가 못 챙겨서 미안하다.
네, 속으로는 너무 미안하고 이런데 또 제 성격상 막 말을 막 못하니까 그냥 음악적으로 되게 그런
한 거군요.
뭔가 그런 거를 제 마음을 그냥 좀 위로하고 싶었나 봐요. 그래서 이렇게 나온 것 같아요.
So when Hwasa says, I'm a B, she says this ironically, not as a celebration, but kind of genuinely putting herself down.
조금 나의 이런 뭔가의 상스러움을 이해해줘 이런 식으로 뭔가 조금 귀엽게 풀려고 한 것 같아요. 이 곡에서는 너무 딥해지기도 싫고 이래서 오히려 그냥 좀 유쾌하게 막 풀으려고 했는데 이 곡이 주는 메시지는 그런 것 같아요. 나 자신을 그냥 위로해주는 듯한? 난 뭐 항상 위로한데 내가 너무 성격이 그지 같아서 미안해. 나 좀 이해해줘, 사랑해줘. 그냥 이런 마음인데 그냥 괜히 이렇게 좀 센 척하는 거 있잖아요. 뭔지 아시죠? 그런 느낌.
You may have heard of Taika Waititi's Oscar-winning ironic satire, Jojo Rabbit, starring Scarlett Johansson and Roman Griffin Davis. It's a comedy about Hitler's Germany during World War II. That's right. I said a comedy about Hitler in World War II.
Okay, come here. Okay, see that American there? Just go give him a hug. Go, run! Let's go! Oh, Yoki, great news. You've just been promoted and you get your own pistol. Just go and shoot anybody who looks different to us. Okay. Okay. Jojo, where's your uniform? Here. Put the jacket on so they know not to shoot you. We must kill everything that we see. For Hitler! Die, devil! Stop!
Cigarette?
So instead of being straightforward, Waititi used irony to take us into the life of a child who was being ruined by propaganda, but still had a good heart. But Waititi's goal was not for you to walk away saying, I guess Nazis aren't so bad. No, his goal is for you to recognize that things are not always so black and white. People aren't just good or bad, but things can happen along the way that can change someone for the better or for the worse. The goal is for you to think more critically about the topic instead of just leaning on oversimplifications. When asked what inspired her to make the Guilty Pleasure project, Hwasa said that she was greatly influenced by another ironic satire, a film called Trainspotting.
Choose life, choose a job, choose a career, choose a family, choose a f***ing big television, choose washing machines, cars, compact displays and electrical tin openers. But why would I want to do a thing like that? I chose not to choose life. I chose something else. And the reasons? There are no reasons. Who needs reasons when you've got heroin?
이번 앨범은 어디에서 영감을 받아 만들었냐면 트레인스포팅에서 영감을 많이 얻었어요. 청소년들이 마약에 중독돼가지고 그런 거를 되게 스타일리시하게 담은 그 사람들은 마약이지만 저한테는 그 마약이라는 것이 음악이거든요. 음악에 대한 거에 너무 이렇게 중독이 돼가면서 좀 미쳐가는 느낌? 되게 공통점을 너무 많이 찾았어요. 그 영화에서.
This film is a wild, humorous trip through the darkest recesses of Edinburgh, Scotland's underbelly, focusing on protagonist Mark Renton's attempt to give up his heroin habit and how his addiction affects his relationships with family and friends. This doesn't sound like a comedy based on the subject matter, but it is certainly humorous and irreverent.
At or around this time, Spud's sick boy and I made a healthy, informed, democratic decision to get back on heroin as soon as possible. Took about 12 hours.
In the Blank Talk interview, she says that she relates to the film so much, with music being her drug. instead of heroin. And she was inspired by how this deep and frankly sad story was told in a highly stylized way. Rather than having a moralizing tone, it went into the mind and world of a happy heroin addict. And the story is told in his sardonic first-person voice. If you've been paying attention to today's lesson, you already know that Trainspotting is not an endorsement of heroin use. In fact, the film does not shy away from the dark side of drug addiction, including the death of one of Renton's friends after he contracted HIV from a dirty needle. And if the message of the film were simply, say no to drugs, kids, then perhaps the story could have been written without irony. But this film aimed to make a more complex point about why people feel the need to take drugs in the first place.
It seems, however, I really am the luckiest guy in the world. Several years of addiction right in the middle of an epidemic, surrounded by the living dead. But not me. I'm negative. It's official. And once the pain goes away, that's when the real battle starts. Depression, boredom. You feel so fucking low you'll want to top yourself.
This irony is effective because there is no moralizing to be done here, but rather a question to be raised. What should Mark Renton be doing instead of heroin? What is the path to a meaningful life? Are his parents better off than him by spending their days watching TV and playing bingo? Are we, chasing material and living our happy little lives, actually better off than the heroin addict who throws his life away? What is life supposed to be lived for? Why is your pursuit of a home and a car and a washing machine more honorable than his pursuit of the next high? And aren't all those things just the next high? This complicated question is driven home in the very last scene of the film.
The truth is that I'm a bad person, but that's going to change. I'm going to change. This is the last of that sort of thing. I'm cleaning up and I'm moving on, going straight and choosing life. I'm looking forward to it already. I'm going to be just like you. The job, the family, the big television, the washing machine, the car, the compact disc and electrical tin opener, good health, low cholesterol, dental insurance, mortgage, starter home, leisure wear, luggage, three-piece suite, DIY, game shows, junk food, children, walks in the park, 9 to 5, good at golf, washing the car, choice of sweaters, family Christmas, index pension, tax exemption, clearing the gutters, getting by, looking ahead, the day you die.
Complex questions deserve complex answers, and not simplistic moralizing. It's not an endorsement of drug addiction, but it's not a dare ad either. It's an invitation for us to think critically about an important topic. Let's remember that Hwasa said she relates to the characters in Trainspotting because at times her desire to make great music drives her crazy. Based on things she said in the past about the mental strain of her creative process, I think she means this sincerely.
막 이 앨범을 준비하면서 너무 막 발버둥을 많이 쳤더라고요, 제가. 지금도 그렇고. 막 도망가고 싶고. 이제 곡들을 항상 모니터를 하다 자거든요. 그러다 이제 점심시간 되고. 그래서 막 그게 맨날 패턴이 똑같다 보니까 어느 순간은 너무 막 거기에 갇혀 있으니까 답답해서 막 너무 막 제가 행복하지가 않은 거예요. 어느 순간 너무 집착해서. 그래서 내가 이 앨범을 낸 후에 나는 어떨까? 과연 이렇게 쏟아부은 만큼 행복해하고 있을까? 아니면 좀 편안하게 쉬고 있을까? 아니면 슬퍼하고 있을까? 라는 생각이 드네요. 오, 눈물 날 것 같아. 대박. 와우.
We'll have to examine what exactly causes the mental strain for her in her creative process. I don't think it's just the act of making the song, but rather the pressures that come with being a successful artist. But for now, let's focus on the satirical style. She also said that she was inspired by the style in which the story was told, the style being a first-person ironic satire. I actually believe that this was the perfect style choice for her to use in the writing of I'm a Bee because it is more than an apology. It raises complex questions. If success as an artist comes at the cost of her mental health and personal relationships, should she quit trying to be an artist altogether? If her personal life and personal affairs are getting in the way of her success, should she sacrifice those things and focus only on her career? Is her ambition and desire to top the success she's had in the past actually getting in the way of her ability to be happy as an artist? Should an artist even have such ambitions? The message in I'm a Bee is not to embrace your inner bee, nor is it to completely suppress your ambitions. The message is to not allow your ambitions to consume you and suck the joy out of your life.
사실 막 전에 너 마리아 되게 잘 됐잖아 그렇게 말씀하시는 분들이 많았는데 그래서 더 막 가지방석 같았어요. 뭔가 모든 것들이 좋은 거는 계속 보여주고 싶고 팬분들한테도 그렇고 근데 정작 내가 만족을 하고 있지 못하니 사실 다른 사람들은 들어도 너무 좋은데 하는데 저는 아니야 난 더 좋은 거를 가져가고 싶어 라는 마음이니까 어떻게 만족이 되겠어요. 그런 마인드인데 그래서 지금은 조금 마음을 많이 내려놓으려고 하고 저는
By placing us into Evil Maria's mind, we are forced to acknowledge that she has a point. Not to agree, but to acknowledge. The road of unbridled ambition can be a sexy and glamorous one, but another part of you will have to suffer or die to make that glamour possible. So she uses a first-person ironic style to show her internal struggle from the perspective of Evil Maria, or the part of herself that wants to forsake her personal well-being in order to constantly exceed her past success. Let's look at how Hwasa and director Bomjin expertly used visual language to demonstrate that irony. The first element I'd like to discuss is the design of the rooms. This is a music video of rooms. Chaotic rooms, retro rooms, dark and disturbing rooms, rooms with very cool floor patterns. So how do these rooms demonstrate the irony of Hwasa's situation? Let's take a look. Want to learn a cheat code for analyzing an art piece? Look for contrast. Many great artists use contrast to draw your attention to an ironic or paradoxical idea. In this case, it is the irony of the fact that the same career that has brought her wealth, fame, and a sense of fulfillment is causing her to suffer losses in her personal life. Hwasa's glamorous style and confident performance are juxtaposed against the emptiness, confinement, and misery on display in the rooms. We'll start with the most obvious example of room design contrasted with her glamorous image, the bathroom. The scenes in the bathroom are a great starting point for analyzing this music video because the contrast is the most straightforward and it's really the only scene in which she breaks character. As in all the scenes, she looks pretty glamorous, and most of the time she looks tough and confident too. I mean, just look at her shirt and her middle finger. It all screams pride and confidence, right? That's why it's so telling that in this same scene, she also looks the saddest and craziest. In the same scene where she tries to look tough and confident, she is literally huddled in the corner, seemingly crying. She looks deranged as she applies her bold lipstick, as if using the makeup to cover up her true feelings of sadness and isolation. And let's talk about that lipstick. The lyrics of the song are written backwards, in fragments, on the walls of this dirty bathroom. The implication is that she used the lipstick to write those words on the walls of this bathroom. The intention in this scene is for her to look mentally deranged. She said so herself in a behind-the-scenes documentary for this project. Why would she want her glamorous, beautiful self to appear mentally deranged? Could it be to make the point that there is a dark or unpleasant side to the confident persona her career is built upon? I believe so. Let's take a closer look at this room and the paradoxical struggle it presents. As I stated before, the words are written backwards on the walls, which adds to the feel of insanity, but it also perfectly represents the paradox at play in the song when you look at the words as she does, through the mirror. When the writing on the walls is viewed through the mirror, all the words appear to be written properly and make perfect sense. That means that the same ideas and notions that make her look crazy to others make perfect sense to her from her perspective. At least that's what I thought before seeing this drawing in her album art. In this drawing, we have two versions of Hwasa, or perhaps it would be more accurate to say we have Hwasa and An Hye-jin. The two versions of herself are on opposite sides of the mirror. That means that for one version of herself, the words are written backwards, and for the other version of herself, the words are written straight. So perhaps instead of this being about other people seeing her as crazy, it's about one side of herself, one part of herself, viewing another part of herself as crazy, which actually makes more sense according to what she said herself about the meaning of the song. She hasn't really said much about dealing with other people's opinions of her. This song is more self-reflective. This image caused me to develop a new interpretation that perhaps the same beliefs and ideals that are good for her career and for her persona as Hwasa actually caused some damage to her personal life, her actual self, An Hye-jin. So let's move to the next room with the strongest contrast, the blue hallway. So when I first saw this music video, the very first thing I noticed in this scene is that she looks amazing. The red dress, the bold colors, she just looks great. And I think that it was completely intentional that this would be what we notice and not the strange, confining nature of the room she's in. It took me about 3 or 4 watches of the music video to notice that this blue hallway does not look like a fun place to be at all. It's unnaturally narrow and confining to the point that she can't fully extend her arms while standing in it. As gorgeous as she is, she appears to be stuck and confined in this decadent space. While it is glamorous and vibrant, visually it lacks a sense of freedom as it is uncomfortably tight and confined. There are also multiple cracked mirrors on the walls of this room. In one shot, we see her face through the cracked mirror, and while she looks amazing and fierce, the cracks across her face serve to contradict this notion of absolute confidence and imply that something is wrong. Speaking of confined spaces and mirrors, let's talk about my favorite room in this music video, the mirror box. How do you demonstrate visually the act of both admiring your persona as an artist and feeling oppressed by it? Their answer to the question was an optical illusion that carries the same paradoxical meaning as the bathroom mirror. In this mirror box, once again, Hwasa is radiant. She is beautiful and glamorous while posing in cool and sensual poses. She admires her own image in the mirror, and in a cool trick, her image is infinitely multiplied in the mirror world. I have a theory about this cool trick. The multiplicity of her image could represent how it's not just about how she sees herself, but also how millions of people all over the world engage with her image. In other words, this persona that she's created is multiplied by the number of fans and admirers who engage with it. Every viewer, every listener, every fan creates another Hwasa in their mind, a version of her that they either love or hate, but none of these versions of Hwasa could possibly represent the fullness of who she is. None of these reflections are the actual person, literally. They are just reflections, just her image. Think about it for your own life. People see certain sides of you and use that to form an opinion of who you are. They may base their opinion of you on your good deeds, the bad things you've done, the way you are with friends and family, the way you are at work, and the list could go on forever. But even though all those sides of you may be real and honest, they do not show the whole you. There is still more to you than whatever perspective people currently have of you. There's nothing wrong with having an incomplete perspective of a person. It's natural. We're not God, so we can't know all the ins and outs of any person. But it would be a shame if anyone felt obligated to maintain the image that people have of them based on their incomplete perspectives. And that is the conflict I see at play in the mirror room. All of these parts of herself become images to be maintained, and they end up creating a sort of prison that the complete her is trapped in. Now, the degree to which she feels trapped, I couldn't say, but I can't help but get trapped from this room. Once again, the space is so tight that she cannot fully stretch her limbs. Once again, she is beholding herself in the mirror, but does not seem very happy. She is posing, she is performing, but she does not seem fully free. So herein lies the third paradox presented in this song. The more success she attains, the more anxiety she feels because she feels the need to exceed whatever she accomplished in the past. Perhaps that is why her expression while she poses in the mirror box is often a tired, even exhausted one. This place where the image is both multiplied and glorified, while the actual person is confined. There are 15 rooms total in this art house film of a music video. We've already discussed 3 of the rooms, and now I'd like to discuss 6.5 more rooms. But I promise it won't take very long because I only want to point out a commonality that exists among them and what that commonality may represent. 6 of the 15 rooms in this music video are dark and empty. That's it. That's the commonality I wanted to point out. Well, apart from making the visuals more intriguing, the darkness and surprising emptiness of these rooms suggests that the same persona that has made Hwasa a successful and influential artist has also left her feeling lifeless and isolated at times. The rooms are grand and fancy, but not. The rooms are large, but empty. And that emptiness surrounding her makes her seem more isolated. This is a great example of something called visual language. In the most well-made films, the visual choices a cinematographer and director make allow them to communicate a clear message even without dialogue. The angles, focus, lighting, etc. all create a visual language that allows the filmmaker to tell a story without saying a word. In this case, I believe these scenes communicate a sense of loneliness and isolation through the back and forth use of extreme close-ups to wide shots and negative space. Negative space is a fun term to describe the empty space around and between the subject of an image. More negative space is perfect for communicating that the subject is isolated or alone. Take this image for example. Right now, your attention is on the boy and his dog, and that is because of the use of a medium shot. There's not much negative space in this shot. But once we switch this to an extreme wide angle, the boy and his dog seem isolated and far from civilization. This is just a small example of visual language. Through visual language, the video communicates this notion of Hwasa being both larger than life and isolated from life. When the 90s style wide angle lens comes in close, her face fills the frame and she appears distorted, larger than the normal body proportions, larger than her actual body proportions. When that wide angle lens comes in close, it could very well be a way of visually representing the success of her career, her rise to global stardom. But when switched to a wide angle, she seems isolated and alone. This notion is seen most clearly in this dynamic shot where we see the dark, empty room, but are hardly given a chance to notice it as the camera quickly zooms in to a cool, confident Hwasa. Metaphorically and literally, we are made to ignore the darkness and emptiness in order to focus on the cool persona of the artist. We are in the mind of evil Maria, remember? So she's constantly working to divert our attention from the negative and make us focus only on how cool she is.
I'ma try.
The simplicity of the decor, or sometimes complete lack of decor, helps to emphasize this loneliness as well. It also gives things a lifeless feel. None of these rooms look livable or lived in. This could indicate that the mind of evil Maria is only fit for performing, but not for living a life. I said we look at 6.5 rooms that serve as examples of darkness and emptiness, and that is because 1.5 of the rooms really work in tandem with one another. This room is not dark. In fact, it's kind of well lit. But it's only seen in conjunction with this dark, basement, sunken place looking room, the darkest room in the whole music video. This version of herself is seen covered in a plastic tarp and surrounded by flowers. These flowers, which I believe are actually another callback to the Maria music video and hold a very deep and symbolic meaning. I believe that the flowers represent a sort of death of some good part of herself. This is consistent with Hwasa's explanation of the music video as an alternate ending to Maria. In Maria, she chose not to die, but in this alternate ending, she has died and entered into this realm of the evil Maria's mind. So it only makes sense that there is this good part of her who's trapped in this place. These seem to be the same flowers that were at Maria's funeral. And at some points, she's with the flowers while under a heavy plastic tarp. Something about that just gives death and dying for me. In these scenes, Hwasa gets into some seriously psychologically vulnerable territory. We have one part of herself antagonizing another part of herself. And it seems to be, if we follow the storyline that's been presented in the music video thus far, that her persona as an artist is antagonizing the part of herself that suffers as a result of it. I also believe that Hwasa really drives home this point about her persona as an artist antagonizing another part of herself with the scene that comes right before we see her in the sunken place. In this scene, there's a clear and pretty direct reference to the film Constantine starring Keanu Reeves. She reenacts the scene from the film in which a priest who's being haunted by a demon has his perception of reality altered. He feels extreme thirst, but when he goes to drink, nothing comes out of the bottle. I love to see a cool film reference, but what's even more interesting is the fact that the demon in this case is parallel to Evil Maria, or the artist persona that's antagonizing this other part of herself. Just as the demon stares at the priest and his suffering, the cool, glamorous persona stares down at this other part of herself. My mind can't help but go back to the drawing from her album art. In order for the persona to be elevated, the inner self, the real self, has to suffer in some way. Notice that in this image, the persona is looking at us, at the viewer, at the audience, because the persona performs, while the real self is on the other side of the mirror, isolated and alone. In the scenes with the dancers, I think that same sort of message is communicated as well. This idea that as the persona performs, it causes a sort of loneliness, isolation, even suffering. Notice how while the dancers surround and adore Hwasa, she is still alone. There's this distinct separation. Visually, it actually seems to mirror a scene from Maria, the funeral scene, where the chairs of would-be funeral attendees are not only empty, but they're facing away from her body. They are surrounding her, but not looking at her. They're surrounding her but not seeing her. She's still alone. That drawing also caused me to notice another little detail in the music video that I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, but it's interesting enough to point out. Her performance completely changes depending on whether or not she's looking at the camera, whether or not she's looking at us, the audience. When she's looking at the camera, the persona is on. But whenever she faces away from the camera, her true feelings seem to spill out, as if the confidence and bravado is simply a performance for the audience. But when the audience isn't there, the true feelings come to the surface. The contradictions within the lyrics are the contradictions within herself. Even if she is making herself miserable with her elevation of the persona, what else can she do? The show must go on. Thankfully, I do believe that the music video ends on a hopeful note. She hasn't completely given up on finding the right path forward, on finding the balance between her career and her personal life, the balance between the persona and her real self. This mysterious scene happened so quickly you may have missed it, but it's actually extremely important to understanding the resolution of her conflict in this music video. It directly mirrors a scene in the film Trainspotting, the scene in which the main character overdoses on heroin and nearly dies. This scene indicates a breaking point for Mark Renton, who in the beginning of the film proudly declared that he didn't want to choose life, but that he'd choose heroin instead. Well, now he's come face to face with the reality of that decision. Thankfully, he does not die from the overdose, but he awakens in a hospital after being revived by a nurse. This close call actually became a turning point in his life, and he finally got clean. As Hwasa sinks down into the floor, reaching her own symbolic breaking point, she does not awaken to a hospital, but she does awaken to a light, to perhaps the most well-lit scene in the music video. While this post-credit scene does not come immediately after she sinks through the floor, it is clearly a continuation of that moment. Notice that she only wears this particular outfit in those two scenes. So when she sinks through the floor, the implication is that she does indeed awaken in this open field. Now let's talk about the symbolism at work in this scene. Many people have mistakenly taken this scene as a reference to the Garden of Eden. We have grass, we have snakes, so I understand making that assumption. And if you make that assumption, then it could seem that she ends by embracing the snake in the Garden of Eden as it comes toward her and she seems at peace. It could seem that she is declaring once again that her sins are beautiful, as is stated in the lyrics. But oddly enough, I believe this scene communicates the exact opposite message. It's not a reference to the Garden of Eden, but it's most likely a reference to a Buddhist narrative. Buddha is said to have been meditating in a forest when a creature with the head of 7 snakes covered him and protected him from the rain and elements as he meditated. I don't believe that Hwasa included this as some general religious statement, but rather as a reference to what Buddha said when he awakened from that state of meditation. And what he said is very relevant to the struggle that she goes through in this music video. To paraphrase, he awakened from that state of meditation and said, "True bliss is to be free from your ego."